All right, so you don't have to create your shaker card with your entire front creating a scene. You can use a die cut to create an opening and create a shaker with that. So that's what we're going to do with this card. So the very first step, I'm going to put my snowflake die where I want, and obviously it doesn't necessarily need to be a snowflake shape. You could do whatever shape you want. Some dies are going to work better than others for this. You definitely want a shape that is going to be recognizable. And then we don't need the actual die cut, so you can save that for a different project. I put it through twice just to make sure that it was cut all the way through. And we can remove this tape. This tape I just keep using over and over again until it really stops sticking very well. There we go. Pop this out. Sometimes this die likes to fight with me. It is a beautiful die cut, but it is quite intricate. If by chance there's a part that doesn't want to come out, you can just use a pair of scissors to help yourself. And then before we create the shaker part, I'm going to stamp the sentiment on the front. Now I just stamped it with ink. You could go ahead and use embossing ink and emboss it if you want some extra sparkle or shine or whatever. I figured just a gray ink was going to be good enough for the look that I was going for. Almost got it out. The last part is fighting me. Where's my scissors? There we go. There we go. Now, if by chance you had to use some scissors to help yourself, this is the time to make sure to cut any excess bits off, because they will show on the front of the card since that is the main part of the card. I'm going to use my stamp positioner for this. I want to make sure that I can stamp exactly where I want. And this way, if by chance I don't get a perfect stamping the very first time, I can redo it a second time and know that it's going to stamp in the right position. So I just have a Winter Wishes stamp here. You can use whatever sentiment you want. Ink my stamp, and when I'm inking it, I'm trying to be sure to not get... One second, try to get that scissors out of the way. I'm trying to make sure not to get any... I want to ink it once more. Now the end of that first sentence, I'm trying to make sure not to get any ink around the edges of the stamp, because sometimes if you're pressing a stamp, it will leave a halo around it, and we are trying not to get that. This can be moved away. There we go. Now on the back we want to add our acetate, and I've got a big sheet here. I should have cut this down ahead of time, but I clearly did not. You just want to make sure that your piece of acetate covers your snowflake. We don't want any openings. There we go. And then I'm going to use some double-sided tape to glue it down. And again, you could use a liquid adhesive here, but you would have to make sure that you give it some time to dry. The Distress Collage medium does work really well on non-porous surfaces. So I am going to take this, just put a tiny little bit in any of those bits that pop out I just want to make sure that we have that glued down really well and it's not going to catch on anything. There we go. And I'm trying to only put just a little bit. I want enough to glue it down, but I don't want so much that it's going to seep out. I like Distress Collage Medium because it dries complete clear and it dries matte. But because acetate has a bit of shine to it, if it was to seep out, even though it would dry clear, it would have a different look than the acetate. The acetate itself is quite shiny, and so you'd see a matte area where the glue seeped out. So try to only put a little bit, just enough to hold those bits down. One last bit, there we go. And then, like I said, you want to make sure that whole window is covered. You don't want to have any bit popping out. I did get a little tiny bit of glue out the front there. So we don't actually really need to wait on that glue to dry, just because that adhesive is being held, or that acetate is being held by the double-sided tape that we've put there. So I'm going to use a little bit different tape from the first card. This one here, because this scene, or because the shaker part is around, or just this window here, what I'm trying to do is put adhesive around the outskirts of the card, and I'm trying not to get any in those windows. So for instance, I didn't want to go all the way across the top because it would have gone into that snowflake, and I want to make sure that that is open. So when you do this, you may not be able to, doing this way here, you may not be able to get it all the way around all of the edges, and that's okay. I'm trying hard not to waste any tape, which is why I'm going all over the place. Trying to make sure to be able to use what we have. And I'm going to put this guy right there. But I also want my tape to support my window and the rest of the card. It looks very random now. Now here's the thing. These openings are going to be areas that shaker bits can fall out if we leave them like that. So we do need to seal them up. And the way we're going to do that is to cut smaller pieces of the tape. There we go. And I also want to make sure that the areas that I leave aren't too big. I don't want to have my shaker bits down here and nothing shows, so I want to have tape as close to the edges of that without going over the edges. One of those things that makes sense once you do it. All right, so now I'm going to fill in the little bits here, and this isn't going to look very pretty. What you could do, and I have done, is done full lengths here and then just notch out, which might be something that works better for you. And is definitely an option, obviously. I just want to make sure that all of these holes are sealed. And that way we don't have any of our shaker bits come out of any of these side bits here. There we go.